Hello. So, welcome everybody. With these beautiful images of mountains, we are together again for the time of the full moon, which is actually it will be tomorrow. But the time of the full moon is a period when spiritual energies are uniquely available, and they facilitate a closer rapport between humanity and hierarchy. And when we are gathering in a group meditation, these energies can be used for many intentions and for the best of the plan to be the light to come. So I'd like to welcome Philip here for our group meditation. Thank you everybody for participating. And afterwards, a presentation. Welcome, Philip.
No sound, Philip. Turn your sound on. Still no sound.
Yeah, thank you. All sorts of dramas here at the moment. I'm broadcasting from a automobile paint shop with a compressor going outside my window in Morocco, somewhere in the mountains in Morocco. So it's been a bit of a drama trying to get them to turn the compressor off. Can I just see if there's any background noise coming through on my microphone?
I can't hear anything. Can you, Natalia?
It's fine. Go ahead, Philip.
Very good. Okay, so apparently it's going to be on for another 30 minutes, but it's not going to bother anyone here because you cannot hear it, which is great. We're here for the Aquarian full moon, or full moon festival, or solar festival as we call it. A lot of people call it the Leo full moon, which is correct, but actually it's a solar festival, so we call it the Aquarian solar festival. Moon in Leo, opposite the sun in Aquarius. And of course, my newsletter came out yesterday, which some of you may have seen. And Pluto entered Aquarius as well, just a few days ago on the 20th. And exactly at the same time as the sun is Aquarius on its annual course for the heavens. So we have a very strong first ray energy of Pluto in the mix of this full moon. And in fact, a major T-square with Jupiter, the ruler of the second ray of love wisdom, and the esoteric ruler of Aquarius, in fact. So very high point of tension that we have going on here for this full moon. And we'll talk more about that later and some aspects of the newsletter. But first of all, let's go into meditation, shall we? Using the meditation we use every month, letting in the light. So we breathe, release all the tension of the day's activities so far. Moving into space of communing on the inner planes with one another, with our world group, all the other individuals and groups around the world tonight, today, next couple of days. Focusing on the gateway that we call the full moon. It allows many refined frequencies to fall through during this period. allowing us to contact hierarchy, even Shambhala. So we sound 3 ohms for personal and group alignment, cleansing each of the personality vehicles as we do so. Stage 1, group fusion. We affirm the fact of group fusion and integration within the heart center of the new group of world servers, mediating between hierarchy and humanity. And so we sound the formula for group integration. I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. Stage 2, alignment. We project a line of lighted energy toward the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the planetary heart, great ashram of Sanat Kumara, and towards the Christ at the heart of hierarchy. We extend the line of light towards Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. Stage 3, fire interlude. Hold the contemplative mind open to the extraplanetary energies streaming into Shambhala, radiated through hierarchy. Using a creative imagination, endeavor to see the 3 planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, gradually coming into alignment and interplay. Holding the contemplative mind open to the extraplanetary energies streaming into Shambhala and home. Stage 4, meditation. Reflect upon the seed thought for Aquarius. Water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty me. Water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men. The water bearer, he pours forth for those who thirst. Stage 5, precipitation. Using the creative imagination, visualize the energies of light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet and becoming anchored on Earth in prepared physical plane centers through which the plan can manifest. We use the sixfold progression of divine love with the sequence of energy precipitation, Shambhala, hierarchy, the Christ, the new group of world servers, men and women of goodwill everywhere in the world, physical centers of distribution. Light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet through these 6 stages. Shambhala, hierarchy, the Christ, the new group of world servers, men and women of goodwill everywhere, in the physical centers of distribution. Lower interlude. First, refocus the consciousness as a group within the periphery of the great ashram, and together sound the affirmation. In the center of all love, I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, throughout the world. Visualize the downpouring spiritual inflow, released from Shambhala, pouring through the hierarchy and streaming into humanity through the prepared channel. And let us reflect upon how these inpouring energies are establishing the pathway of light, the coming world teacher, Christ. downpouring spiritual inflow. Shambhala Maraki Hima. Distribution as the great invocation is sounded. Visualize the outpouring of light and love and power from the spiritual hierarchy through the 5 planetary inlets: London, Darjeeling, New York, Geneva, Tokyo, irradiating the consciousness of the whole human race. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out. May it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on it. Om. 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 Thank you very much, everyone. Just give me a minute. I'll be right back. I just have to do something. Hang on a second. All right. How's my sound?
Good.
Good. So very challenging evening for me here today, but good example of having to function as a still center amidst all the activity. And glad to see the sound is better there, Hugh. Very good. And so one of my most challenging situations when you travel, you never know what is going to be pitched at you from one day to the other, especially in countries like Morocco. Anyway, it's all good. And there's no noise outside now, not much noise, just some wild dogs barking. And let's return to our theme of Aquarius. But before we do, if anyone wants to share anything from the meditation, please feel free to jump into the chat now and before we go on. Great to see you all here anyway. So trying to get my menu here sorted out. Expand that to a greater screen. Doesn't matter. I just have trouble with this box here. There we go. Can you see my screen with the newsletter page?
Yeah. Yes, Philip.
Very good. Okay, so in some ways, Aquarius is like the first festival of the year. The Chinese lunar calendar, of course, celebrates their new year quite often in Aquarius, which is a different system, of course, but in some ways, we know that Aries is the first spiritual festival of the year. But Aquarius certainly has some of those characteristics of energies which set the pace for the new year each year. Having just come out of Capricorn, of course, and into revolutionary, unconventional, if you like, Aquarius. Aquarius, the reformer, revolutionary. And that reform takes place through primarily the exoteric ruler Uranus, which was discovered between the two revolutions in France and the USA, 1781. And also through Jupiter. You have Uranus, which is the planet of science, of innovation, of reform, change, as it rules the seventh ray, the ray of organization. So that's one part of Aquarius. Then you have the philanthropic side of Aquarius, which is from the esoteric rulership, Jupiter, the ruler of the second ray of love wisdom. So the signs have these very distinct interpretations by their rulers and also the rays that come through the sign. For instance, Uranus is regarded as the planet of science, but the fifth ray of science, ruled by Venus, is the only ray to come through Aquarius. So it has a double scientific theme added to it. That's right. As I said before, the Jupiter makes a very tight T-square to this full moon, this sun-moon opposition in Aquarius, Leo, Jupiter in Taurus, and I did say, I think, in my recent commentaries in the newsletter or elsewhere, because of the theme of the distribution of prana that Aquarius carries, and also the theme of Taurus in terms of the of its basic fundamental meaning of money and possessions and so forth, that this T-square could trigger a financial crisis. Of course, we've been waiting for the big crisis for the last 20 years, and who knows when that will come, if at all. Quite often, talk of crises is often used as a scare tactic. So, anyway, that's one expression of that T-square. The other expression, of course, with Taurus, mother of illumination, is the acquisition of high knowledge that is ultimately transformed into wisdom. So all these things are possible. Of course, the opposite point of the T-square, they say, is the resolution point, and that would be in Scorpio. Scorpio, the sign of discipleship, the sign of, as the word discipleship implies, discipline of the lower nature. And of course, the incidental expression of the first ray of will or power via Scorpio's co-ruler, Pluto. So, as I said in my newsletter, Aquarius is a sign of conferences, of cooperatives, of corporations, all these C words that relate to a bunch of individuals all working together for some particular endeavor, a business, a charity, whatever, but a group that has various personalities, all of them imperfect, of course, learning to work with one another in harmony and cohesion in a way that will benefit the greater group process, whatever that is, whether it's a corporation, big company, spiritual group, you name it. And as I've pointed out many times, the corporations are a recent invention in many ways, and in the last couple of centuries. They started to develop early on in the young nation called the United States, and have reached a point of refinement and perfection today where they totally dominate world affairs. And I call this the shadow of the Aquarian age, of the new Aquarian age, because these newly formed corporations, on the whole, mainly are based on selfish intent, as opposed to in terms of exploitation and so forth, as you've probably read many times in my newsletter. So that will change, of course. That will mature over the next centuries or so. There's some very important groups that have been formed in the last century. The United Nations, in particular, is one that was had the assistance of two masters in creating the United Nations, the Master Dwarf School and the Master Serapis, I believe. And like all groups and that are around that have been going for the last century or so, they are still in their very early stages of maturation, as are many nations. The USA, for instance, is still a young nation, still an immature entity, as are many other nations. And likewise, so is the United Nations, which is in many ways the hope of mankind. So we have a long way to go in terms of our maturity, but we are experiencing an extraordinarily accelerated period right now, especially in the last 5 years, and will probably be increasingly so in the next decade as we overlap 2025, that magical date, of course, for the Shambhala conclave and the decision of the masters to return amongst humanity. But humanity has to really step up to really allow that to happen, for those plans to come to fruition, for the externalization of the hierarchy for the first time since the ancient days of Atlantis. So, okay, just getting a bit distracted there by someone. Can you just hang on for one moment? I just have to talk to somebody. Excuse me a moment. Sorry about this. Just maybe someone can sing a song while I'm gone. Just kidding. I'll just be back in a second. Okay. Any questions or comments so far? Perhaps you have read the newsletter yourself. If there are some points you want to take up, clarify. If you do have anything, just put it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that, address it as we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to just pause again because I have to talk to somebody. Sorry about this. Just take a minute. All right. All right, that's all fixed up now. Sorry about that interruption. A couple of passages in the chat. About the cycle of conferences, Heidi says, when the group illuminates with the light of the conference to the light goes to the hawk too. Yes, it can. It can go evenly to the forces of light or the forces of materialism. It's impersonal in that respect. Anyway, so speaking of group work, the crew here that I'm just talking to, a great motley crew of about 20 people to spray travelers' motorhomes and work very long hours into the night. So I've discovered. Anyway, I digress. But this is all just part of my travel experience, as I mentioned before. Which, by the way, I'll just, if you haven't seen my Geography and Giants essay on my website, it's worth checking out with regard to my travels through North Africa, through Morocco, particularly at the moment. So we're at the point there of discussing the nature of Aquarius and corporations and how they can be selfishly motivated, how they can become almost evangelical and fanatical from big companies and corporations in their one-pointed, zealous aim to achieve their goals. And I did mention in the newsletter as well how powerful the Leo polarity is for Aquarius. As we are going into the new Aquarian cycle, many people are waking up, and this is very much to do with Leo and the first initiation. This sense of self-consciousness or soul consciousness, but also in terms of the dictatorial nature of Leo. Many of these corporations have become super dictatorial to the point now where they're calling the shots for entire governments, the majority of governments in the Western world, in fact. It really is quite a difficult situation the world finds itself in now, because many of them all are interrelated to each other, and so it's not just one corporation, but it's a whole kind of phalanx or matrix of corporations that all interact with each other and all determine or dictate similar policies, the same policies. Anyway, so just to mention that. Another comment in the chat here. Michael says, interesting, the sun was escorted into Aquarius between both Ray 1 planets, indeed, Vulcan and Pluto. And this is another reason why this full moon feels like an Aries beginning, because of Pluto's coincidental marching into Aquarius, the second of three hits with the sun. It goes back into Capricorn one more time later on next year, I think it is, or is it this year? And then it stays in Aquarius for good for at least 20 odd years, till 2040 something. And as I also said in the newsletter, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in the 1780s to 1799, when all the turmoil was going on with the French and American Revolution, and both of which really set the tone for freedom, equality, fraternity, of course, as in the French saying, and that general principle of freedom that Uranus represents, is breaking away from suppression, oppression, slavery, etc. And Sirius, the higher self of the solar system, has a lot to do with that. And in fact works through Uranus in one of the parts of historic astrology. I think it's about page 426. You can see this downpouring energy of Sirius through Uranus and through the sign of Pisces, actually, if I recall. Anyway, we are at the end of the age of Pisces and going into the age of Aquarius. There are still many people on this planet who are rooted in Piscean consciousness or in outmoded ways of being or doing things, and a much smaller percentage of people are awake and working towards creating a new paradigm of the Aquarian age, which of course Uranus is so dynamic in activating those forces. So I was going to get to a particular point just then. One of the things about the seventh ray, which Uranus rules, is the shadow of the seventh ray in many ways is regimentation. There's this way of organizing things in an orderly way, which is very much the way of the seventh ray of organization, or the seventh ray of ceremonial order or magic. But the shadow of it is this rigid regimentation. So we see the seventh ray is strong in the army, for instance, when you have a regiment of people who are walking in lockstep, literally. And that's a good thing, of course, for fighting forces to be organized and all the rest of it. But the crystallized sort of shadow aspect of the seventh ray is regimentation, where there's just too much of rigidity in that regimentation. And we're seeing that in the last few years, I think, this attempt by corporate entities to regiment the rest of humanity according to their particular agendas. So it's interesting to watch that. And we are on a new seventh ray cycle, and on any new cycle, whether it's a planet or a sign, quite often the lower aspect of that energy is expressed first before the higher energy starts to develop. Okay, so Aquarians are quite often radical people who march to the beat of a different drum. They it's a sign that follows Capricorn, which represents the status quo. That doesn't mean that all Capricorns are the status quo. Of course, it all depends on the individual. But generically speaking, Aquarius reforms that which has become crystallized in Capricorn. Capricorn, the sign which suffers the most, we are told, from crystallization. And that's because Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, the ruler of the throat center, the mental body, is excellent at creating thought form. In fact, it draws upon the seventh ray, which comes through Capricorn. It's one of the three rays that come through Capricorn. And so you have the seventh ray is the ray of geometry. So Saturn and Uranus working with, or Saturn and the seventh ray working with each other, has the excellent magical power, if you like. Capricorn is a sign of magic, both black and white, to create geometrical thought forms as they appear on the mental plane and eventually precipitate into the physical plane. And voila, there is magic. There is the manifestation of an idea of spirit into matter. That's why Capricorn is regarded as the most spiritual or the most mature sign of the zodiac, depending on the intention of the individual. And before Uranus was discovered, Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, used to be the ruler of Aquarius. And it still does rule Aquarius from one point of view, because it rules the first decanate, or the first 10-degree subsection of Aquarius, and offers, the Tibetan tells us, humanity opportunity in this first 720 years of the 2,160-year precession cycle of Aquarius that we're moving into, which starts technically astronomically in 2117 AD. So the first 720 years will be conditioned strongly by Saturn. Then the next decanate, or 720 years, will be conditioned by Mercury. And the final decanate, excuse me, will be conditioned by Venus. So that's another story. But just to remind you of the wealth of detail in each sign and how it can be broken down into these decanates and finer points. So you may have in your horoscope a planet in a certain decanate that has a, you might have your sun, for instance, in the Saturn decanate of Virgo. Second decanate of Virgo is ruled by Saturn. So that's just kind of another refined sort of qualification of that energy in that sign, and makes us all so very individual, as individual as the palm print on your hand. So any comments, questions, clarifications, so forth? We did say accidentally in our email out to everyone that it was an hour and a half meeting, but we did decide several months ago to keep it to 1 hour. So for the meditation and the talk altogether. So we have another 10 or 15 minutes left to discuss anything that you see as fit to discuss. And so in this first article of my newsletter, I talk about the relationship of the new moon in Capricorn as a bridge to the full moon of Aquarius, and how Pluto played a big part in that, but also how the new moon start itself was a harbinger, I should say, of the new year, particularly in fiscal terms, in terms of money. I have a chart there, you can read that at your leisure. And the new symbol for Pluto, of course, is the vertical up-pointing arrow that relates to the raising of energies from the lower chakras to the higher. Pluto technically rules the base chakra, the very lowest chakra, but it also is associated with the solar plexus and represents the raising of energy from the solar plexus to the heart. In the long term, from the base chakra to the head. Of course, Vulcan's the co-ruler of the first ray. Its symbol is the opposite. It's the down-pointing arrow of spirit moving into matter, whereas Pluto is matter moving up into spirit. One of the symbols for Pluto here, of course, probably can't see it very well, is the holding a trident, not unlike Neptune, similar to Shiva's actually. Shiva, the first ray deity in the Hindu tradition. And he has the three-headed dog, the Hound of Hell, or Cerberus is the name of this dog. Very symbolic of several things. Of course, you could even relate it to Sirius, Canis Major. Comment in the chat. The new symbol, where did it come from? It's mentioned, Amelia, in esoteric astrology, and I do quote it. Have a couple of passages related to that quote in this latest newsletter, but you can also find other commentaries in past newsletters on my website. And of course, that's what I was going to say before. Even though Pluto was powerful, people say, well, Pluto wasn't discovered in the French Revolution or the American Revolution. DK does make a comment, words to the effect that Pluto has always affected us. And I do have that comment, that quote in the latest newsletter as well. So it only came into our, physical consciousness, if you like, in 1930 when it was discovered. And of course, now many other trans-Neptunian planets are being used by astrologers, Sedna being one of them. But Pluto will become far more well known in the next century or so, I think, because of its rulership of the first ray and how the first ray is associated with Shambhala, and of course how the Shambhala energy is going direct to humanity now, only in the last century or so, the decision taken by hierarchy. And the point of least resistance is the misuse of power in that respect, which the hierarchy have taken into account. And that's why fascism is the shadow of the fifth root race in many ways. As I was commenting to someone today, another thing in the chat there, why is Pluto not a sacred planet? Because it hasn't reached its stage of evolutionary perfection, essentially. That's what differentiates the non-sacred planets, of which our Earth is one, from the sacred planet. They really help us to understand within ourselves what is not redeemed, particularly Mars, and one of the major non-sacred planets. Mars and Pluto, of course, work very closely together with regard to the solar plexus center. So it's amazing, isn't it? Pluto, this tiny planet, but very dense. I believe a square inch of substance from Pluto said to weigh 1 ton. A square inch cube of matter from Pluto. So it's a heavy-duty planet, literally. We thought Saturn was in its rulership of lead, but Pluto way more. So 2024 is going to be a huge year for all of us. We know how intense it's been the last few years, and it's really made a lot of us wobble in our tracks as far as keeping up with what is going on, handling the very powerful energies that are coming through, forcing us all to step up. And 2024 will be no different, particularly with all the threats of war going on the planet, genocides, the US election, the conflict going on in different parts of Europe, will really challenge us to keep steady and to keep standing steady, to hold the line. I love that word, hold the line. It's a military term. Thinking of Napoleon, I watched that movie the other night, and the Tibetan mentions Napoleon quite a few times in the books, as does Blavatsky, probably a disciple of Shambhala, responsible for about 3.5 million people being killed, but also did a lot of good things. So in the chat we have poor old Scorpio, neither of its rulers, Pluto and Mars, are sacred. There's Q. Indeed, and Scorpio is the sign of humanity. If you look in astrology again, in the part about the creative hierarchies around page 35 onwards, DK discusses the creative hierarchies, which are essentially groupings of angelic beings that constitute the zodiac sign. And Scorpio is the sign of the zodiac that rules over humanity, is called esoterically the initiates. And in fact, however, Scorpio has a hierarchical ruler, as do all the other signs, and that's Mercury. Mercury is the sacred planet that hierarchically rules Scorpio. Mercury, whom I call the deep sea diver. You can find some articles about that on my website. Mercury, the messenger. Mercury, the principle of intuition, direct knowledge beyond the mental plane. So, not so poor old Scorpio. It does have some redeeming features. Fourth ray of harmony through conflict, also called the ray of art and beauty, is the only ray to come through Scorpio, and it too is a ray that generically rules humanity as a whole. And the fourth ray, of course, coming into incarnation again slowly after 2025, quote unquote, according to the Tibetan. So that fourth ray cycle will overlap, coincide, excuse me, with the unfolding of the Aquarian age for the next 2,000 odd years. And don't forget also, there are always 4 or 5 rays in incarnation at any one time in the various cycles. So, many things that we can explore about all the signs. They have different levels, 3 different levels of interpretation, I believe, according to the 3 different rulerships of each sign. And you've got a fundamental bottom line exoteric interpretation, then a higher esoteric interpretation, which corresponds to the soul, and then the highest interpretation, hierarchical ruler, that relates more to the monad or spirit, if the person is at this stage of building the outer Karana between the soul, or called the body, and the monad. So that is a good context to bear in mind with any of the signs. And also the planets as well do work in a triple level. We won't go into that tonight too much, but maybe discuss that in some future workshop or seminar, which we plan to do 1 or 2 of this year, the Aquarian Wisdom Center Retreat. Don't forget, we also have some resources on our website regarding the conference that we had in Aries last year. There are still the videos and articles that can be accessed there if you're interested in that conference that we call European Reunification. Of course, that will not happen until Europe falls apart a bit more. And even we see Germany at the moment considering doing a Dexit, like Brexit as such. Anyway, that's of course another story that I've written about quite frequently too. Liberty, equality, fraternity. They have the great cry of freedom from France that struck a blow for freedom and democracy, as did the USA. And of course, I'm talking about Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the USA. And he makes quite a powerful statement right off the bat, way back in the 1780s. I hope we shall crush in its birth the aristocracy of our moneyed corporations, which dare already to challenge our government for a trial of strength and to bid defiance to the laws of their country. That was then. And then further on, of course, in the American Civil War, Abraham Lincoln made a similar statement, which is much longer. I won't go into it here, but warned of what would happen. And here we are now, 150 years later, approximately, and it has happened. What both of them warned about. They could see the writing on the wall. And so this is one of the big problems that has to be sorted out. And I believe that Pluto going through Aquarius will make some very powerful changes to the culture of one of these corporations. If not, the outright destruction of some of them. That's what Pluto does. It brings its wrecking ball to anything that has outlived its usefulness, which of course includes many political parties around in many countries, and creation to allow the room for new political parties to arise and to guide the souls of their nation, so forth. Excuse me, a bit of a cold right now. So, well, enough said, I think. Unless we have any other comments that anyone wants to share. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming and contributing to this service of meditation we did today, and we can keep tapping into what we tapped into tonight in the next few days around the full moon period, either in other group meditations or in our own individual meditation. So as they say, I see you on the inner plane somewhere, and say good night and pass it back over to you, Natalia.
Thank you very much, Philip. And indeed, thank you everybody for participating in this group service. And if not before, see you next month. So goodbye. Have a blessed rest of the day, everybody.
As they say in Morocco, shukran. Ciao.
Boa noite.